Here we go. Hi, everybody. It's Tracy.
Hi, it's Michelle.
And here's our next, and this is our special guest, Tara. So Tara's not the HR lady. She's also my favorite person that I've never met in person. And I do say that all the time. And I had to kind of, when I talked with Julie Turney, I was like, oh, you're very close. But I had to be like, Julie, I think. So, but she's not you, huh?
She lives in the Bahamas, doesn't she?
She lives in Barbados.
In Barbados.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that's an honor because I live in Austin, Texas. So if I'm still your favorite never met person, I'm over Julie. Like, okay, like all right, yeah. I'll take it. She pretty pictures. I love it.
She's close. She's awesome too. So she's going to be on here. But and so thank you very much for being on the show. I think, gosh, our last guest was Adam, probably back in June. So we've had each other as our guest, but you're our first one in a few months. So we're delighted that you're here. And
thank you for
we talked about, we usually do just, we chat and, but we're going to wrap our theme today around vulnerability. And one of the things that I love the most about you, and there are many things, is your openness, particularly your openness online. And I think that that's something that we could use a lot more of in leadership. So I just want to start by you talking about you, whatever, for however long you want to, and then talk a little bit about that. And then
that's loaded. That's loaded, Tracy.
I know.
You know me, I get long-winded.
Yeah,
I was really excited. I was really excited when you had suggested maybe talking through vulnerability. And you're right, I am really open and transparent and stuff online in the show, but a lot more online actually than I am in my posts, I should say. In my posts on LinkedIn, I'm a lot more open and candid. And I think that's just what's missing, right? What I think has been missing for so long in the workplace in general is just remembering that we're all human beings with human emotions that go through shit. We all go through insurmountable shit, and some of us deal with it better than others. Some of us have an easier time than others sometimes. I mean, no matter what though, your version of shit that you're going through is yours, and it's all happening to us. So why do we pretend like it's not, Why do we act like we're sick when we're struggling mentally? Why instead don't we just talk about the fact that, you know what, I had a really rough week going through some personal stuff. I am taking a mental health day, and that be normal and that be normalized. It's not. I hate that. And so I want to talk about it. Same thing with like calling out brilliant assholes. I do that a lot in the sense of I was a brilliant asshole, if you will, in some capacities because I've been complicit. And that silence sometimes, and sometimes the action you take, lends yourself to being no better than the people that you're hoping to rally against, right? So I wanted to take the opportunity to just be as clear and open and honest and vulnerable to ridicule, vulnerable to people disagreeing with my feelings, people telling me that this is no place for this in the workplace. And that happens every single day. Every single day, somebody says some kind of nonsense to me. And it sucks, but I'm going to keep saying it because the impact that I've made, that I know that I've made personally, I get thousands of messages a week. Oh my gosh, thank you so much for posting this. I didn't know others were feeling this way. This makes me have more courage to say the things that I want to say, to be who I want to be and lead with that authentic self. And I mean, it's my passion now, or my purpose now better. I've been a big fan of chasing your passions because they're fun, but keep looking for your purpose. And for me, I've found my purpose in being the voice for people who just can't say some of the things that I can say. And I remember when I was that person, for fear of retaliation, fear of losing my job. I'm the breadwinner. If I lose my job because I'm calling some bad behavior out that I should be quiet about because that's what's expected, one, I am a terrible human being and I feel horrible about myself. But two, I have to decide between, can I pay my bills and just being complicit and doing what I'm asked to do? And that's a hard decision sometimes. And I've made the wrong one until I decided I couldn't, and didn't have to take it anymore. So instead I am going to be the mouthpiece. And so I know that that vulnerability and that openness and that transparency, that willing to say like, I fucked up. And now I want to do better, and I want to be better, and I want to help guide companies to being better, so we don't have to continue to be put in a position of I'm in fear for my job, or I'm going to be complicit with my employer. That's the goal, right? So yeah, that's a place that I'm really personally passionate about, and I'm really glad that at almost 40, I have found, I think, my purpose after all this time. Because man, getting into HR, which was never my intention some 20 years ago, was never my intention. And you wonder why do you do this to yourself? What are you doing? And then hopefully you have an epiphany like I have. I know, Tracy, that you definitely have. I know that, Michelle, you've switched courses, but you had an epiphany too. And like, that's a beautiful moment to have. And it doesn't matter when it comes. When it comes, embrace it, and then feel good about the work you do every day. And that's what I have. I no longer have nasty knot in my tummy anymore. Like, I don't want to have to just go and deal with what I know will be utter bullshit. I no longer have that like feeling of dread sometimes of having to go into the office because so-and-so is there and he always says the grossest things to me. Like, I don't have that anymore. I wake up every day and I'm excited and passionate about the work I'm doing. So I believe that I owe it. I got a beautiful mental health, like freedom, if you will. So it's now my job to get up and be an enthusiastic champion of like, you know what, we don't have to take this anymore. So I that's why I do it. And that's why I love doing it. And now it's my purpose. I can't imagine not taking on this stance of being somebody who just champions for people for the rest of my life.
I love it. I love it. And a couple of questions here. So this made me think. So first of all, was your shift when you left your role? And then the second thing, you mentioned you're almost 40. My epiphany came at 40. I'm not going to speak for Michelle. I'll let her speak, but I know I talk to
It was 40 for me too.
Yeah. So I talk with a lot. I'm 48 now, but when I was 40 was my whole life shift. I talk with a lot of women, it seemingly lately, that are around 40 that are either in some type of crisis or needing to make a change in their life or their job or something. I don't know. Have you encountered that?
Oh yeah. It's so funny that you say that. I was chatting with my girlfriends. Everyone has like their girl group, right? I have mine. We've actually all been friends since high school. So like 25 years, which is gross. We got on the other night and we were literally just saying the same thing. We were showing each other like the chin hairs we got, which is weird. Doing all the girl stuff, you know, all the non-technical girl things. Talking about like, do you notice that like parts are starting to get like weirder and longer? And we're like, yeah, you know, all that stuff. But in it comes with talking about really finding yourself. And because this is a business show, I'll lightly skirt the fact that the conversation started in a sexual capacity, like really understanding who you are. And so I switched it, not because I'm a prude or anything, but I switched it to, do you guys find that all of that, like you're coming into your own in so many different ways around this time? And we're all turning 40 this year. So yes, a resounding yes in all facets of life. So like I said, again, it's my friend girl group. So we were talking about like sexual peak, right? Are you finally now exploring like different things and getting, you know, in a place where you're like, yay, yes, that was the answer. And figuring out what you like. Same thing with figuring out what you will and will not tolerate in the workplace. My girlfriend just got laid off 3 days ago. It's a terrible story. It was I put her in touch with an employment attorney. Ironically, the very same day, it's just a funny side note, this was the day we were having the conversation. They sent her, the day they fired her, a work from home kit. And I am just going to pass it to, I'm going to send it over to you guys. And I just want you to see the bingo card that they've come up with. It is like 100% bullying, 100% disgusting. And they 100% shouldn't have let her go because she's a person who champions for that sort of thing not being a thing in the workplace. But she works for all white, mostly male, much older, but a public company. So like, I don't want to say which one, but like with her getting fired, her epiphany, to your point, was like, holy shit, I can't do this. And then I get this bingo card, like who who even came up with this? Like, who thinks this is right? And now she's on that path of like, I'm not willing to accept anything less than I deserve from here on out. I'm not willing to be a part of a company like this. Yes, they fired me wrongly, etc. But that's great. I'm glad they did. Now I'm going to do something that I should have been doing all along. And again, same idea. At 40, you're having all of these wild epiphanies. I ended my marriage. Honestly, I decided I wouldn't take it anymore. I have 7 children, all with the same baby daddy, aside from the 2 older ones who we adopted. They're my niece and nephew. But same baby daddy, 11 years together. And it was like, I'm not willing to be in a place where I am unhappy and you're not being a partner to me. That is what I signed up for. If you're not going to do that, you got to go. And 5 years ago, that was not where I was at in life. I wouldn't have done it, couldn't have done it, even though I knew I should have back then.
Right.
But you do what you do, right? You try to just get, but to your point, yes, I feel like this 40 is like some mythical, magical age where you're like, I'm not fucking taking it anymore.
Yep. No, I think that's right. And I think Dave, my husband, is my second husband. And I know you both know that, but that's, in the latter half of my 30s, that was I obviously had that shift. So I was married previously to my son's dad. And I think you're right. I think once I didn't know myself till I was almost 40. I really didn't know who I was. And I think you can't know what you want when you're almost 40. And when you look at marriage, you look at jobs, you look at things like that. I know people who are together. I know a lot of people who are together, not a lot, but I know with some people who are together with people that they've been together for a long time. But I think it's really hard and takes an enormous amount of work to go through that. And same thing with jobs. If you have the same job that you had when you were 20 or 22, you're not the same person at 40. I don't think so. It maybe that's why we're seeing so much of a shift.
I don't know. I always thought when I was a kid, right? When I was a teen, and I wonder if you guys are the same. 40 seemed so old. Like so old.
Yeah.
Like
30 seemed old.
30, totally. Michelle, you're so right. 30 seemed old. You're like, your life is pretty much over. I should just pack it in by then. Like, I didn't have kids till I was in my 30s. Like, life isn't even over. Life is kind of just starting.
I think my parents were like, when my parents were my age, I think I was like 25, 26. I was almost having a kid of my own by the time my parents were my age. And I thought they were so old then. And then I feel like 18 most of the time, except for those, I just don't feel I feel younger now than when I was in my 20s.
I agree.
Which can be good.
That's when I'm getting out of bed.
Yes, that can definitely be problematic for sure.
The hip and knee pain is real, and I don't mean to just throw that in like, oh, old lady, but like, I feel 21 often, but then my knees remind me otherwise.
I was walking across the street. Dave and I went to get coffee just before this, and I was walking across the street, and I was like, oh, my hip. I was like, I don't even know what that muscle is. He's like, I think it's a hip flexor. I'm like, oh, that hurts. What is it? Just those random aches and pains.
I know. I am my hips literally hurt so bad. It was from when I was pregnant with my twins. I think they had dislocated them. And now I just have problems with them, but it makes me feel so, like such an old lady. I get out of bed and I'm like, what am I going to do? I love it.
Oh, that's funny.
And I'm enjoying the journey, right? I mean, I've always lived out loud, to your point, as far as vulnerability goes. Like
I was wondering about that. Yeah.
That's always something I've always kind of done. And I think, I don't know why. I would say, I guess that it's probably cathartic for me. A lot of times I'm writing to myself. And it's funny, somebody actually picked up on that the other day, which I thought was an interesting observation. So a lot of times I don't pre-schedule my posts. I don't decide in advance. I don't have like a content calendar. I am like the world's worst influencer if when you think about it, because I don't have any kind of like agenda, because I'm not trying to be an influencer. Do you know what I mean? So I get up, and sometimes that's at I almost always get up at 5, but I sometimes get up and I'm immediately inspired. I'll start reading the news, something will spark, and I'll go, ooh, I want to talk about this today. And so there's no like agenda, if you will, and there's no set like, this is the topic of the week. this is what's going on with the show, so I'm going to talk about this. It's not that at all. I wake up and have an epiphany and I start writing, and it's more like journal entry. So I think if it's funny, if you go back and you look at any of them, you might see that I'm not always talking to someone else. Like, I'm sometimes talking to myself, and the message out there that I'm putting is like that reminder that I need for the day. And then other people just happen to like the reminder as well. But again, it's whatever I'm feeling in the moment. And I think that lends itself to being like more authentic when you read through it. It sounds like we're having a conversation. It sounds like you're talking to a friend. I think that's what people have said. And when I think about like what that does and kind of how scary that is to put it out there for everybody to read your thoughts, your innermost thoughts, it's a little nerve-wracking. But at the same time, when you see that first person love it, or you see somebody go, I needed this today, so did I, like, so did I. And so I feel that. And I love to make those authentic connections. And I'm able to do that now. Although I've always been a live out loud kind of girl, I've really done it now in a way, or I'm doing it in a way now that I'm not ranting about it, right? I'm being very purposeful, and I'm choosing to give myself usually like a pep talk. And sometimes a call to action. And I think in the past, or where I've grown, because I mean, we're all growing. We just talked about how we didn't know ourselves at 20, but I bet we thought we did. And here we are at 40, and at 60, we're not going to know. We're going to go, we didn't know anything at 40. Oh my gosh, I can't believe we thought this was old. Trying to put that in the air. Like, really kind of coming into our own, and for myself, kind of going, I don't need to rant and rally and whatever. I don't need to rally any troops. I need to just say what needs to be said, I think, in that moment. And I'm going to do it as raw and as exposed, and using storytelling if I can, if it's appropriate. There's something about understanding that somebody's going through what you're going through that just makes them so relatable in a way that you're like, shit, you know what? I do need to check out today. I have been comparing myself to everybody else. Why is she talking at a conference? Why did he get published on Forbes? So demotivating and derailing, and that sometimes I need that. Let's shut it down and let's try it again.
Right. Yeah. And I loved your video in the car where you talked about that. You just had to check out. And I think, when I post in the same way, I can't be anything but authentic. So I never thought that, I'm an introvert. I'm completely red. Anything I do, I stumble through the first minute. And then, anytime I speak, and when I started this, that's why I like Michelle at the start. She's like, okay, you think? I'm like, okay. So I can gather my thoughts. But what finally got me comfortable with speaking out about things was other people. And was when I gave my first talk ever, which I co-presented, and the not the feedback on how I did, but the message. And I went, wow, I have something to say. And I look at it now as like, if I can share a little piece of myself, and you have a gigantic audience, of my audience is like this, but if I can share a little piece of myself and that helps somebody, I mean, I'm good. Like that's my fuel. And so that I really, really love that. And I've really grown to embrace that, even though it is really, really challenging. So, and I can't quite live out loud that much, but I admire you a lot for that. So, and there's lots of other folks that are doing that, but it drives me nuts when I see people who are clearly scheduling posts and like, here's my thought of the day, and here's this, and it's authenticity.
I don't like it.
Authenticity. So I had a really good question, and it totally escaped my mind. Oh, I had a comment, and then so you mentioned calling out the brilliant assholes, which I love, and you do a ton of, but you're very, very kind to everyone else. Very kind to everybody else. And I don't think that always coexists, and I think sometimes it does, but you somehow walk a really fine line where you take no bullshit, but yet you are, I know, and even when you and I have had conversations about the old HR and things like that, you're much kinder than I am. And I was one of those people, right? So you're much kinder even than I am to people on their journey. And so I don't know if you've always been like that, you've always been a champion for people. I mean, you have to be in a role kind of. But.
Right. So here's what it is. Okay. Like I just I've seen so many people get away with so much and seen so many brilliant and, thought-provoking, give you something back, add value to the organization, just be shit on by those people who are buddies with whomever at the top. And that's how they got their job. That's how they keep their job. And that's how they justify this person's so brilliant, and I am a kind person at heart. It's actually uncomfortable for me to be super aggressive. I'm not an aggressive person at all, which I think would surprise a lot of people. I'm very direct, but I thank you for saying that you think I'm very kind about it when it's not directed at those asshole people. When it's directed at those asshole people, it's like game on. And I'm not a keyboard cowboy. So like, let's have a debate about it. That's the difference. They're not willing to discuss their assholeness, right? In a meaningful way. They just want to come on like a pigeon, shit all over everybody, fly away and call it a day. I would prefer to engage in a debate about it. So you have a stance and you've made your position known and you're comfortable being a jerk. Bring it then, right? Like, let's bring it on. I want to debate that in an intelligent, in a smart, in a fact-driven, I'm not going to call you names kind of way. I'm going to overwhelm you with my intelligence and then let you know that I refuse to have a battle of wits with an unarmed person, as my mother would say.
How often do you get to do that? How often do people engage in an intelligent battle?
In an intelligent battle, almost 0% of the time. I did have a great conversation this morning with a good friend of mine, only for context for the rest of the story. We went to high school together. He's a Black man. And I had posted about this person who was a mother in Ohio refusing to wear a mask. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you guys saw the story. The cops came, she refused more, started, yelling whatever at them, tried to get her. They ended up tasing her, but she's not dead. But she resisted arrest. She has a criminal record and was belligerent and yelling whatever at the police officers. And so I posted it and I thought, well, why isn't she dead? And that was the conversation that I had. Why didn't they just shoot her? And it was in jest, as you know. It's in jest. It's being like ironic. I'm saying this because I want people to understand how absurd it is, right? And maybe you can only do that if you see it in someone that looks like you. Like you see this Karen and you're like, when I'm yelling out, well, just shoot her then. I don't understand why she's not dead today. Like, isn't that what's going on? Isn't that the standard? So like, I was arguing with him just a little bit this morning, but it's a beautiful, intelligent, smart debate. And he's like, you're being unproductive when you say stuff like this. And I said, I appreciate that. However, it's not meant for you. And it's certainly not meant as a teaching moment. This is Facebook, okay? This is meant to call out all of those fuckheads waving Confederate flags that I went to high school with, who for some reason I'm still connected to and will not unfriend me. And I just don't have the time to go or interest to go and unfriend. I'm talking to y'all. I'm talking to those people, not you. And it's in jest. And we went back and forth a little bit, but it ended on, this is how I communicate. My message is not for you. Thank you, but the bottom line is here. And he was like, great, we're on the same page. I think that I just didn't understand how you were saying it. And that was that. That was the end. Beautiful conversation. We left as friends. All is right with the world. And that is what you hope to affect in the workplace. Coming in and being like, I hear you that your buddy is a brilliant asshole and he built whatever it is that he built that you're super excited about. But he's a racist. He's a misogynist. He's been firing gay people. Like, come on, man. Let's do it. Often in a professional setting, I get the opportunity, and I have had with many of my CEO bosses. On LinkedIn, hardly ever. Never intelligent. Never interesting. Always just, yep. I don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
And that sucks, like I hate that I don't get the opportunity to engage in a friendly and educational debate. But at the same time, it's not going to deter me from continuing.
Right. Right.
Um,
Right.
But okay, so the trolls and the shit people aside, yeah, I've sort of always been straightforward to the punch, want to get you, whatever. But lead with kindness, lead with empathy, give them the benefit of the doubt at first. It's until they prove they don't have a soul, that they are a racist, that they are a misogynist, that you have to go for the jugular. You give them the benefit of the doubt. You've seen me do that, Tracy.
Yep.
And then when you prove that you're just another idiot who came on here to just fight with white women or black women or women in general, as a white whatever male almost exclusively, then you're just an asshole, and now I'm going to take you down. For everybody else, I want to just encourage and empower and strengthen everyone to feel like they matter, especially women, that they belong, that their voice has a place and that you should use it, and why. And until you can't, I said this just the other day with Herdacity, microaggressions are the norm, right? So what about micro suggestions? So let's just flip the script on everybody. And instead of, going like for the jugular all the time, because we know we can't do that. That's not realistic in most people's professional work environment. It's just you can't do it. You're going to get fired. You know that. So is that wrong? Yes, but that's a different topic. What if instead you could give micro suggestions here and there, something about explaining why people use pronouns on LinkedIn. Maybe just throwing in little tidbits of information, when you're talking to the executive team, when you're talking to people who matter, when you're talking to people who disagree with you. But especially when you're in the workplace, throwing in just little micro suggestions. And that's a really interesting way to start using your voice. Doesn't have to be confrontational.
I love that.
We have a group, Tara, we call them the HR Rebels, and we meet weekly and we talk about different issues and share best practices. And a lot of the topics lately have been around racism in the workplace and the role HR needs to play there. And a lot of the folks were talking about, HR not really carrying the torch and fighting the fight because they're afraid, and they're afraid they're going to get fired, or they're afraid of what's going to happen. I remember going into my CEO's office earlier this year when things really started to bubble up with Black Lives Matter. And I said, we have to do something. And I was petrified.
How terrible is that?
But
right?
I said,
you were petrified.
I was petrified, but I said, you know what? This is my value. And I believe that we have to say something. And I'm a big believer that if you don't say something, people make up their own story. And how horrible would that be if our employees made up a story that we didn't care?
That's exactly right.
And that's what carried me. And I think that, I love the little micro suggestions, right? To give people that courage to go in there and make those statements. And we did something and it was great. And I didn't, at the end of the day, I felt like I was stupid to be scared because we did the right thing. But I can imagine that a lot of HR professionals that don't have great relationships with their executive leaders, or they deal with a lot of difficult executive leaders, don't say anything because of fear.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Afraid to speak up. I mean, I was afraid to speak up even, and that's why I make it a mission to try to do more of that, like on LinkedIn, and knowing that it is going to cost me something. And it has. There was a group I was in, it was an award that I won, and I spoke up about basically like an Oscars so white type of situation with the current one. And I get kicked out of the group. Wasn't allowed to vote, wasn't allowed to present. Yeah. So, which is fine. But you know what? And my husband and I have talked a lot about this. You know what? Like, I feel good. Like, I feel good about, this isn't right to me, so I need to say something. So wow. I feel good about that. And so that's, I can't sleep at night unless I'm doing the right thing. And if I see something now, and I'm much more in tune to it, that's wrong, I need to deal with that. And I think we all need to deal with that. And if you're afraid of risking something, then you're not doing enough, right? I mean, if you're not afraid, right? So that could have cost you something, but you're doing the right thing. So you're going to be fearful. I think if you're speaking up and you're speaking out, it's going to be uncomfortable, and it should be.
And it can absolutely be met with the what you're fearful of being a consequence. And I think you have to get to a point, and that's different for everybody. So like, I don't want to give anybody a pass for not speaking up when something's wrong, particularly about racism in the workplace. But I also will take a pause and say, I know what it's like to be afraid you're going to lose your job and to not have a nest egg to fall back on. Like, I didn't grow up rich. I don't have a rich mom and dad, you know, like, I don't have anything to fall back. It's me. It's my own money. It's what I've done. And if I do this and I get fired, if the fear becomes a reality, then what? So like, I get it. I completely get it. I think when you can, that's why I think micro suggestions are maybe good, is that when you can, you have to, because we will never change. We will just never change the face of work, the face of society in all of these things that we struggle with. I mean, like, look at it. We still make what, 82, we're all white women. So 82 cents on the dollar for what a man makes. And maybe some of us don't, maybe some of us make more, but probably not. I can tell you, like at my last job, I was actually lied to, which I've spoken about before, I didn't do my salary negotiation with the CEO, right? So I ended up coming in and I made $100,000 less than my next closest counterpart and less than a subordinate to him. Even though I had presented, this is what I wanted, but I took it, right? So I took the job, the job I wanted. I didn't want to be unfair. I didn't want to have a huge pay disparity between myself and my peers, which is what I led to believe would happen if I took it. And then I was lied to. So that's a really interesting place to live, right? Is now, and why you would lie to the head of HR is like, makes no sense to me at all. But like, here we are. Why I'm so passionate is for exactly those reasons, is that the longer we continue to just be silent and just take sort of the stuff that comes at us and, you know, be a little bit more meek, that's on us, right? We sort of have to start changing the narrative. And I think there's a lot, to your point, there's a lot of us doing it, a lot of us making noise, not enough. And fear's a bitch. So I encourage everybody to really take a moment, but also we get it, we understand.
Yep.
But start leaving, because that is the worst thing. Then leave, right? So don't work for an employer like that. Let them lose the good talent. Start looking for a job. Because if you can't say anything until you have a job, get one. Reach out to any of us. We'll help you. Like, if you're in that place and you're fearful, try to get out.
Right.
Make them suffer in that way if that's what you can do.
Right.
Yep. You can do something. It can take many different forms, but you can do something. Absolutely. You've got to get to a photo shoot and we've got to wrap up, and we could talk like for hours, but I want you to talk about what you got coming up next and where everyone can reach you.
Oh, thanks, Tracy. I have a lot coming up. You mentioned I'm going to a photo shoot. I'm doing the cover of my book today, which is called Fuck Your Options Next. Very excited. It'll be up for pre-sale, I hope, next week. We're targeting for, I think, the 5th of October, which is really exciting. But in addition to that, because we're not busy enough, we have a few new shows coming out. So you can find all of this information at notthehrlady.com. Connect with me on LinkedIn, also Not the HR Lady, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. I'm on it all. You can just, Not the HR Lady is where I'm at. And I'm really excited about our news show, which I want to just plug really quick. It's starting Monday. It's a daily news show. It's called BS Free News. It is designed entirely for business professionals, not just HR, so business in general. It'll cover all of the hot topics related to what's going on with unemployment, what's going on with any stimulus packages, any just relevant hot topic news that we need to cover that affects the business world. Anybody calling out people, like Wells Fargo guy as an example. I'm not going to call him out because that'll be old news. There'll be somebody new, I think, by Monday. It'll be live, hosted right on our website at notthehrlady.com. And it'll be at 3 p.m. Central Time every single day, starting on the 28th of September. And then for an additional fun fact, we keep being called the radical left by the Trump administration. As you guys, we're always called the radical left. That's Joe Biden. Anybody who's pro-Biden is the radical left. Well, every time I heard it, I was like, I love that he keeps saying that because it makes me think like we're really cool, right? Like the radical left. And so actually bought the domain totallyradicalleft.com, and we will be doing a debunking Trump's assertions related to what the totally radical left thinks and what we're supporting every single day from October 3rd until November 3rd, encouraging people to register to vote and debunking all of this. We want to take away your guns. That is not true. So we're going to show a clip of Trump every day sharing something that is false, and then giving a totally 80s, and I'm not kidding, a totally 80s response and rebuttal onto what it actually means. So that'll be the Totally Radical Left show, daily live, also on our website, starting on the 3rd of October.
That's awesome.
Love it.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody. Everybody reach out to all of us. We'd love to connect with you. And thank you so much to Tara for being here, and check out notthehrlady.com.
Tracy, Michelle, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.